Tech1 flew myself and a bunch of other content creators over to Los Angeles, California to get around 4 hours of game time with Dying Light the Beast. Now, for transparency, they foot the bill for travel, food, accommodation, and plenty more. Want to make that as open as possible before proceeding any further into this video. Now, in terms of guidelines like what we were able to show you and not show you, anything and everything is on the table aside from major story spoilers, which is good because I actually have a lot to say about that. They also allowed us to showcase up to 15 minutes of our own recorded gameplay and as much provided b-roll as we would like, which we will take advantage of that. Any footage recorded by myself will be outlined right here with my name as a watermark. If anything is provided b-roll, it will be indicated with Tech1's name in the same corner. Now, there weren't any guidelines about not showing the map or the skill tree or anything like that. The only thing they did request was limiting the conversation around story stuff. This is actually the second time I am playing Dying Light the Beast. I got the chance to get hands-on at Summer Games Fest, which, what I did say in that video, still holds truth and value, and we'll dive into that a little bit later. I do have to say that one of my biggest criticisms from that earlier build was the hit reactions and the ragdoll behaviors. Thankfully, in the latest version, things feel much more aligned with what I was hoping for and with what the community is hoping for. The combat feels much more polished and reactive overall. There's still some fine-tuning needed, especially with certain weapons. Your fists are kind of awkward, but I'm far more confident in what I played here than compared to the Summer Games Fest demo in terms of gameplay. I think Dying Light the Beast has the potential to be something truly special. It brings back that horror vibe that we've been missing from the previous title. It looks absolutely stunning with its new lighting and weather systems, and it generally feels like Tech1 is trying to merge the best elements of both Dying Light 1 and Dying Light 2. The foundation in Dying Light the Beast, it feels stronger than ever before, and I want to make it known that Dying Light the Beast, it's not trying to reinvent the wheel. And that's okay. What Tech1 has done is created a focused, intentional return to the series' survival horror roots. It's not a massive evolution, but it's a meaningful realignment, one that reestablishes what made Dying Light so special in the first place. And by doing that, they're setting the stage for future entries to truly push the boundaries, experiment, and evolve without losing sight of the identity that made the franchise stand out to begin with. There's a clear vision here. What Tech1 has built feels confident. But yes, there are flaws, but they're the same growing pains that the series has always had, which is slightly upsetting, yes. The difference though is at the core of this game, it's so much more refined and it's really back to the roots. The foundation feels stronger than ever, the parkour is satisfying, the gameplay loop feels tight, and the world just invites you to get lost into it. If you're a longtime fan of the series, this will hit exactly where you want it to. If you're just looking for a new survival horror experience, The Beast might also be that for you. I can already tell you that the cutscenes, most of the camera work, the gameplay, the parkour, the brutality, the driving, the music, all excellent. Really well done and polished here. When it comes to the cutscenes and overall camera work, Tech1 has really stepped things up. I mean, the new camera angles and the direction that they're implementing, it brings a completely fresh perspective to how we experience Dying Light. The cutscenes now seamlessly shift between first person and this more cinematic dynamic shots, and it works surprisingly well for me. It creates moments that are not only intense, but genuinely engaging. You get a much more stronger sense of the world, the emotions of the characters, and the scale of what's happening around you because of these new elements. It's a big change from how things were handled in the past. And while there are a few slightly awkward transitions and some slightly jarring moments at times, for the most part, I really love this direction. It shows that Tech1 is trying to evolve the way that they tell stories. And this shift in presentation might just be what they need to finally bring their narrative ambitions up to the same level as the gameplay. Now, the narrative, the story, I want to unpack that. So I'm not going to be spoiling anything. I'm only talking about what's been made publicly available from trailers and just sprinkled in with a bit of insight from my play session. What I really want to do is focus on the characters, but more specifically, the dialogue. It is easily the weakest part of the experience that I played. The characters, they do seem quite interesting, but I don't think I've had enough exposure to them to properly give full thoughts on them. The main character, we will discuss in the next section.
Whoa, hold it, I'm a good guy.
That said, the story and some of my character interactions were giving like cheesy 2007 vibes, and not in a good way. I mean, I get it. We don't really play games like Dying Light, the Beast for award-winning storytelling, but it's just that some of the dialogue felt incredibly awkward and borderline cringy. It clashed with the darker, more serious tone that the game is clearly aiming for, and at times, it pulled me out of the experience heavily.
Is that why they call you the sheriff?
That and the fact that I kicked butt. Come on, we better get back to my people.
Now, for some quick context, we played the first 4 hours of the game. During that time, we had access to around 4 main story quests and a couple of side quests. If you've seen the trailers, yes, you know Kyle Crane. Kyle Crane is back, he's here, he's mad, he's angry. He was captured after the events of the following and has since been experimented on by the Baron, the main antagonist of this game. And in our demo though, we kind of skipped over that intro and any action sequences that led up to that moment. We didn't see how Crane escapes or what that initial moment looks like. Instead, we're just dropped straight into the Castor Woods. Holy shit, we're here, baby, right into the heart of the game. We're stepping into a different version of Kyle Crane this time. One who's clearly more experienced with some parkour abilities and skills carrying over from the first game, which is honestly much appreciated. But because of the experiments that he's endured, he's also unstable and surprisingly vulnerable. It's a really interesting shift in how we experience the character compared to playing him in Dying Light 1. But still, it's Crane at its core, but just a very jaded version of him. But as Crane, we're on a journey of rediscovery, and as you play him, you can still feel flashes of that charm and witty behavior from the early days that you would expect from him.
Hey, open up. It's all clear out here. Says the guy who just saved your collective asses.
But right now, he has a different goal in mind, figuring out what happened, why he's so weak, and what it will take to regain our strength. And one of the main ways to do that is by hunting down powerful zombie bosses known as Chimerias. Defeating them lets you extract their blood, which grants you beast points. And using beast points, it unlocks more abilities for you, and this is what you'll do to slowly but surely evolve into a more powerful version of yourself, but more on that later. And that's about as much story as I'm going to give away for now. Again though, I'm not sure how the story and characters will land. Of course, very early preview. I'm sure themes and characters will develop more as the game progresses, but even in this short play session, it just felt that there was a lack of a strong motivating objective or emotional hook, and it made exploring the world feel a little less impactful than it could have been. I feel like story has always been one of the weaker aspects of Dying Light as a franchise, and I mean, going off of my experience so far, I really hope that moving forward, there's a more concentrated effort to bring the story side of the experience up to par with other elements of the series. Because I mean, the gameplay, the parkour, the combat, all of that is incredibly fun and well done, but it's clear that like many games in this genre, the narrative often takes a backseat, and I feel like at some point that needs to change. As the franchise matures, I think the narrative side of things really needs to grow with it. There's some real potential here. I mean, the world building, it's strong, the setting is rich with history and tension, and the tone finally feels aligned with those horror themes that we've been craving for so many years. It just needs characters and dialogue to support that weight, because gameplay can only go so far. But fuck, the gameplay is so good in this game. Before we proceed, big thanks to the sponsor of the channel today, StallCraft X, a free hardcore PvPvE extraction shooter set in a vast exclusion zone where every mission you take on is equally risky and exciting. In this large open world, you will have quests, random events, and you can decide whether to avoid encounters or engage in combat against other players. And with the flexible weapon choices, incredible gear customization, and dozens of upgrades available to you, you'll be able to find the right gear that fits your playstyle that you do desire. Best part of the game has to be the high-risk PvPvE extraction aspect. Whatever you carry out of a raid is yours, but if you do die, you lose it, but you do keep what is equipped, which makes it for some really intense and interesting gameplay moments. If you're looking for straight up PvP battles, StarCraft X also offers deathmatch and gun game to get you warmed up. And coming soon are Operations, 3-player co-op raids against bosses that really drill in cooperative teamwork gameplay. Jump into the zone today for free by using the link down below in the description to get started. You can also go ahead, enter my code, and grab exclusive rewards too. Again, thank you so much to StarCraft X for sponsoring the channel, and with that said, let's get back to it now. So starting with the combat, it is so visceral and brutal, and the stuff that I want to show you will surely get me demonetized. There was one scene where I was pretending to be a citizen of London, and I had a pocket knife and was just slashing away at zombies and watching their flesh being ripped away. Watching the gore in full spectacle was certainly a sight to behold. Seeing their guts being ripped out was jaw-dropping. And when you start using those heavier weapons like a machete, it gets even more gruesome. There was one clean slash that I did to the head, and you can see literal jaws flying off. Skull splitting open. It's savage, it's messy, and honestly, it's everything that you would want from a game like this that leans so hard into horror and survival. It's so well done, but holy shit, the gore and brutality genuinely caught me off guard. It is a big step up from previous titles. I had a sword at some point. I don't remember. I think it was a sword. I don't remember the exact weapon, but I literally split a zombie in complete half. Super impressive. I know previous Dying Light games have been criticized for the combat. In Dying Light 1, zombie combat, incredible, but fighting against humans felt clunky and unrefined. And then with Dying Light 2, the roles kind of reversed. Human combat was vastly improved with better AI and more tactical depth. But fighting zombies, it lacked that same punch with issues like weak ragdolls and inconsistent hit registration, dragging it down pretty often. And with the Beast, I really feel like Techland has finally nailed the right middle ground here. The combat against zombies, it is once again brutal and satisfying, aside from a few lingering hiccups with ragdolls and hit feedback, which I mentioned earlier. Still a work in progress, but much better than what I played about a month ago. And while my time against human enemies was very limited in this build, from what I did experience, it felt just as polished and intense as it did in Dying Light 2. It's a step forward, and one that shows that Techland is really listening to feedback across both games here. Beast mode takes the brutality to a whole new level. It's exactly what we wanted to see in Dying Light 2 and done properly here. Like I said earlier, you start out as this weaker version of Crane, and to get your power back, you need to slowly go and hunt down Chimerias. And these encounters will reward you with Beast Points, which you will use to unlock abilities across a full skill tree. I mean, it's pretty in depth here. In the build that we played, there was around 13 skills available, and honestly, it's just pure fun. Beast mode, it just becomes your own personal playground where you can just let loose, tear through zombies, and embrace the chaos. I can't imagine what this is going to look like in 4-player co-op with 4 beasts running around. When you first start the game, beast mode triggers automatically once your meter is full, but as you level up and unlock more of the tree, you'll eventually be able to activate it manually whenever you want, even before it's completely charged up. The skills themselves enhance your overall combat potential. You'll be able to throw heavy objects, perform a roar that stuns nearby enemies, do a ground pound, and much more. But I think the real standout here, and I mentioned this in my previous video, it's the finishers. When beast mode is active, you can execute these brutal takedowns, ripping heads clean off, tearing arms away, and tossing enemies aside like ragdolls. It's over the top, it's gory, and it's easily one of the most entertaining additions to the gameplay loop that has not been done in Dying Light before to this extent. Now, for parkour and lighting, I don't have a ton to say here, and that's honestly a good thing. I mean, Techland has consistently nailed parkour over the years, and that remains true with the Beast. But what really sets it apart this time, it's not the mechanics themselves, that's relatively the same as Dying Light 2, but it's more so the environment that we find ourselves in. I mean, the game takes place in the Castor Woods, and honestly, it's beautiful. This time around, I had a much better look at the lighting and weather systems compared to what I saw at Summer Games Fest. And outside of the sunrise and sunset, I do have to say the game with its lighting leans a bit more into the cooler, more vibrant tones, lots of blues and greens. It actually reminded me more of Dying Light 2 than I expected. That said, the Beast overall still has a darker, more grittier color palette. The world does feel more grounded and more realistic in just how it presents the environment. I mean, you can take a look right now and kind of get that vibe here. That said, I do think I may have overstated how striking that orange tint lighting felt in the earlier build, because at the time, it really stood out because that's how the level was presented to me. But now, looking at it, I'm not so sure. I mean, like I said, you can see for yourself. I mean, you can see how drastically different my gameplay looks from the IGN footage. Yeah, I think I'm going to hold off on sharing too many final thoughts on the lighting and atmosphere until the game does fully release. There's still a lot that could change, and I want to give it a fair and complete look when the game is honestly in our hands. In this environment, you're not navigating massive, dense cities and skyscrapers. Instead, you're moving through the woodland areas, winding paths, and the occasional dark caves. The colors do make more sense in this aspect, I guess, but at first I just wasn't sure how parkour would translate in a more rural setting here. But I was pleasantly surprised. Techland has clearly put a lot of thought into adapting transversal into this new environment. In place of like monkey bars and scaffolding, you'll find tree branches, rock ledges, and other natural elements that serve the same function. It's a very unique and interesting twist. It's a subtle but refreshing shift that makes the world feel more handcrafted and purposeful. Even when you're just moving through it, it's still that same fast, fluid parkour that you've all come to know and love. It's just reimagined for a new kind of terrain. When it comes to Crane's abilities, some classic parkour moves from the first game actually do carry over and are available right from the start, which I do appreciate them. No need to unlock them again. That said, there are still plenty of traditional skills that do require unlocking, such as dash or active landing. Stamina, it doesn't drain when you're climbing now, which does seem like a minor detail, but it does make transversal feel smoother and more empowering, especially in those tense moments when you're trying to escape during the nighttime. Driving and pickup trucks are available. It does not have the same depth as it did in the following. To my knowledge, there is no upgrade path or skill tree for these pickup trucks. They only really serve as your means of transportation from point A to point B. And that's really it. And there's a lot of pickup trucks around here. Like they're not in short supply. I don't know what the fuck was going on here. You will find them very easily. Driving, it's a blast. No criticisms here. The camera option to switch between first person and third person, I love. It's welcomed and much appreciated. Now, brief timeout. So everything I've been saying so far has been extremely positive, aside from my criticisms with the story and the dialogue. But there is one thing worth highlighting that I don't know how to feel about, but I think it's definitely worth talking about. And it's going to be hard for me to put it into words, so I'm going to try my best to explain it to the best of my ability. Here we go. So a few years ago, I had the chance to go and play Dying Light 2 early at a preview event also in California. And I still remember that experience vividly. The gameplay back then was fun and addictive, even if the story still didn't land for me. But that core gameplay loop, that's what kept pulling me in. And I just didn't want to stop playing when I was there. I wanted to explore more, uncover more, and really immerse myself into what Techland built with that game. That session, it gave us a few hours in Old Villador before transitioning to the Central Loop, which when we got to the Central Loop, that's when we got to meet Lawan a little bit more and then also get access to the paraglider, and then obviously go around and fly around. And I would call that probably one of the game's biggest wow moments. You know what I mean? It's like the section in the game where the world just suddenly opens up and everything clicks. It's where the gameplay systems come together and you can finally get a full sense of the scope of the experience that you're going to be playing. And with the Beast, I didn't quite get that same feeling. Don't get me wrong, the gameplay is fun, the mechanics are solid, and there's a lot to love in here. But there were moments where I just found myself needing to like take breaks and just to sit back and rest like in real life. Maybe that just says more about me and the way I played games and how that's changed over the years. Or maybe it's the pacing and structure of the build that I played. Either way, I just felt that it didn't reach the same level of momentum or immersion that I felt when I played Dying Light 2 back then early. Now, I want to be explicitly clear. This is not me diminishing what Techland has created here. For all I know, that Beast's wow moment, it's probably in the full game, and I only really got to experience a small sliver of the Beast. So it's entirely possible that real magic is still waiting deeper within, waiting to be discovered. But I also don't think the Beast is aiming for this huge jaw-dropping reveal. Instead, like I've said numerous times, and I really want to drill this into you, it just feels like this game is a culmination, a deliberate effort to bring the best elements of Dying Light as a whole, refine them, and return the series to its roots. And in that respect, it succeeds very much. Does that make sense? I hope it does. Does it? Comment down below and I can explain more in detail. But fuck it, turn off the lights, let's talk about horror. And I spoke about this in my Summer Games Fest review, but the horror vibe is incredible. Techland really nailed the atmosphere here. When the sun goes down and you're deep into the woods with nothing but your flashlight, it is pitch black. You cannot see a thing out there. It's eerie, it's tense, and it's super exciting to imagine how this is going to be at full release. I actually made it a point this time around to really showcase just how dark and gritty the nighttime really is. The gameplay that you're seeing on screen, I purposely turned off my flashlight and played like a 5 to 10 minute section. As you can see, you cannot see anything in front of you. It's total darkness. One of the developers, he came up behind me and he's like, you know, you can turn the flashlight on. And I'm like, that's not the goal. I got this from here. And I really wanted to show you what the game looks and kind of express what it feels like being in this new nighttime atmosphere. Like that, we've never had that. Dying Light 1 wasn't even able to achieve that at times. So after spending a good chunk of time with Dying Light the Beast, I can honestly say that this isn't some radical reinvention of the series, and that's kind of the point. This feels like Techland taking a step back, grounding the experience, and building a stronger, more confident foundation for the future of the franchise. It's not trying to be the biggest game ever made or completely flip the formula. Instead, it's embracing what worked both across Dying Light 1 and Dying Light 2 and finding the right balance between them. Combat is more visceral than ever before. It's brutal, it's gory, and genuinely satisfying. The skill tree gives you meaningful progression, especially in beast mode, which is just pure fun and a chaotic addition that rewards you for just letting loose. And even though there are still a few rough edges with ragdoll physics or hit registration, it already feels more responsive and more defined from the build that I played a month ago. Parkour, as expected, is still a highlight. Techland has always nailed the movement, but what surprised me here so well is just how it adapted very nicely to the new setting. I'm not walking away disappointed. I know I mentioned that it didn't have that wow moment and that it felt like some story elements didn't grip me as much as I would have liked them to. I wasn't pulled in by the narrative just yet. There wasn't that standout moment or emotional hook that I've experienced here, and I just feel like that's kind of typical with these Dying Light games at this point. It's not an excuse for poor writing. I just think it's a proper way to manage your expectations when you get your hands on this game, because it's apparent at times. I'm walking away feeling like Techland knows exactly what this game is and what it's meant to be. The Beast isn't trying to be everything. It's just trying to be Dying Light at its core. It's not aiming for the sky. They aren't set on doing a 500-hour plus adventure or a journey or be this big, massive open world that will keep you revisiting for months and years after. It knows what it is. And that's what makes me really excited for the future, because the foundation is solid. And now Techland can take the next leap forward. They can push forward, they can experiment, they can innovate, and really take the series to new lengths after the Beast. But for right now, just happy to be back.